It's definitely been a challenge of sorts to have ever gotten into the water, and it goes back to when I was in high school, and I was going into the ocean. It was at night, and I felt something bump up against my leg, and that sounds trivial, and today of course I laugh about it. I think it's kind of funny, and but at the time I thought it was an animal of some kind. I didn't think it could be a rock. I didn't think it could be anything that was non-living, so of course I put it into the most dramatic tense possible at the time, and I stayed out of the ocean, and really out of any water that I couldn't see clearly through from above, and that's very rare. You can see clearly through to the bottom from any waterway. I don't care how blue the water is, how clear the water is, etc. It's very difficult. But it kind of took a toll on me over time after that, to the point where I really didn't even want to go into swimming pools. It wasn't that I was scared there was something in there, but there was kind of that fear of maybe it was current, maybe it was anything along those lines. So yeah, I mean, my point here is that if you're scared of going in the ocean, or if you have any kind of fear of water, kind of think about this, and maybe open up the mind of sorts to be able to consider doing this, because it is a great thing. And one thing that I hope to do in the future is get more people that are experts with scuba diving. I'm certainly not an expert by any means with scuba diving. Get them on this episode, or on this podcast rather, and be able to talk through it, and maybe on the level where those who are a little bit apprehensive about getting into this wonderful, amazing field of scuba diving, where it just opens up so many worlds to you, they could definitely work with me and talk you into it. So how did I get back into the water? It really fast forwards from probably 1996 or so to about 2010, believe it or not. And 2010, we had a trip down to Costa Rica, and the idea was to do some snorkeling as part of the trip. It was an amazing trip overall, and Costa Rica is a beautiful country. If Curacao not your cup of tea for whatever reason, then Costa Rica's got so much going on, that from coast to coast, from Caribbean to Pacific, through the volcanoes, and through all kinds of cloud forest, rainforest, and everything. But one of our excursions on this adventure was to do some snorkeling and feed some fish, and that seemed exciting. So we get into the boat, and I'm wondering what in the world's going on out here. The water is very murky. I couldn't see, and I was expecting clear water, and it was certainly not. And what had happened was there had been an earthquake, I guess the day or two before, probably the day before. We're not connected to the news or anything, and it's all in Spanish, so we really didn't have a clue what was going on, but we were told there was an earthquake off the coast around that time. So that certainly murkied up the water. But I got in, and I couldn't really see anything. I mean, that was kind of the fun part, was and not really, I'm being very facetious there, it wasn't fun at all, not able to see anything. So we just kind of got back in the boat, but before we did that, the boat guide threw some little crumbs in the water, and you have fish coming up, and you can't see them until they get to the top, and it was kind of scary there, not fun at all. But I felt weirdly safe, and it was kind of strange going from the extreme of not wanting to get into the ocean at all to getting in there at this time. So I certainly did that, and had a good time. So you go a couple years from there, and that was the first trip to Curacao, and that was when the water was clear, the water was great, you could see some of the corals below, and so forth. And so we decided that we were going to do some snorkeling there as well. And when you snorkel, you can certainly dive down a little bit, but you still have to use great caution for your ears, and just for breathing. You're not going to breathe underwater, of course, but you just want to be able to get back to the surface to be able to get your breath. So we did a little bit of kind of diving down a bit, and it's amazing what you could see. So I was intrigued by the idea then of trying scuba diving, and I didn't really realize how easy it was to try scuba diving. Of course, you want to make sure you have medical clearance. As an insulin-dependent diabetic, I had to ensure that my doctor would sign off on this kind of thing. So they had, because it was kind of one of those things in advance of, maybe we'll scuba dive. It's kind of ha over beers, thinking, maybe we'll go scuba diving. But we ended up doing that and signing up with the dive bus, and I'll talk about them all the time. And they don't even have to pay to promote themselves with me. I love them so much, and I highly recommend them. But the point being is that I had the clearance and went to the introduction to Discover Scuba Dive, and we had a really, really, really good time. It was really